Okay, can I hold a general contractor's license in California and Hawaii simultaneously? If so, how do I go about it? Yeah, there's no reason why you couldn't. A lot of companies have it, and actually, it's really a good point. Now, even Hawaii would be the same as, let's say, for example, that you have a California contractor's license, but you want to do some jobs in Reno or in Las Vegas. You need to get a Nevada license. A lot of companies that are near the state lines. It could also be up along the Oregon border as well. You need to get licenses in both states. No problems getting licenses in multiple states. And actually, in some cases, we actually make it easier. We do have reciprocity agreements with a number of states, including Nevada and Arizona, and that may help you be able to waive taking your trade exam. If you, let's say that you've got a general contractor's license, the equivalent of a general contractor's license in Arizona, and you want to get it in California, if you've had it at least 5 years, you may be able to waive taking the trade exam. You would still need to take the business and law exam. So there's some things to make the road a little bit simpler, but you can't use a Nevada license in California. You have to have it. You can have multiple licenses in different states, not a problem. Okay, you're looking to get a license for ground level and below. Would that be a C license? I'd say, yeah, go to our website, type in classifications in the search bar, go to the list of the things. There's like Anna said, there's like 40 different C, and then you have our limited specialty Ds, which are another, I think, 25 or so limited classes. Yeah, there's underground pipes and tanks and all those kinds of things. So go through that, click on it, get the definition of what they are. You'll be able to find the appropriate license classification for you. If the experience is supervisory in a project management role, does that meet the requirements?
Yes, you get experience for supervisory experience. So you'll want to make sure that whoever's qualifying your experience knows that you have the experience. They have to be very detailed on what it was that you were supervising. But yes, you will get credit for that.
Okay, next one, are you answering any questions regarding handyman licensing? First of all, there's no such thing as a handyman license. In California, we have what's called a handyman exemption. As we said at the very beginning of the presentation, when does a license become required in California? The law is for any home improvement job that is $500 or more in both materials and labor. So anything that's under $500, any jobs, it's called a handyman exemption. So if you're installing a ceiling fan or maybe putting in a couple of sprinklers, or a job that costs less than $500, you don't need to have a license to do that. So once you do that, you can't take a $1,000 job and cut it into two $499 jobs to get around it. We still do sting operations. We do target unlicensed contracting. It is a problem in the state. We do focus attention on it, and we're very aggressive, especially if you're thinking about doing any work in any of the disaster areas. I would encourage you to think twice. If you get caught contracting without a license in disaster zones, it can be charged as a felony, and you could face potential prison time. So enough about that. $500, the handyman exemption, no license. Definitely, though, if you are going to be doing the small jobs, be sure to get a business license. Take those steps. Be a professional company. If you're working towards getting, your license, you can do the handyman jobs and things to get your experience. If you in the past have done the work, I'll just repeat it. We will allow you unlicensed work as experience. We want you to get licensed. Our goal is not to keep you from getting licensed. It's not to arrest you. It's not to cite you. It's not to get charges filed against you. We want you to get with the program, get on the team, be one of the good guys or gals, get your license, and we want you to go to work. We want you to have a good living, be a good professional in this great industry. Okay, let me get off my soapbox here. Okay, next is, how does my certifier approve my experience? Just a statement, or are they going to be interviewed? We talked about, these are on the forms. They have to fill out that form, and in some cases we do contact them to elaborate or if we have additional questions, but the best way is to get that information onto the certification forms we have. Next question, I'm a farmer. I have built several hoop houses and irrigation systems and livestock shelters. Is a limited project license appropriate for this kind of small farm work? I'm assuming in this, you're looking to do this type of work on other people's property.
You wouldn't have to, yeah, correct. If it was your own property, you wouldn't have to. However, if you are planning on getting a license to do it for other farmers, what you would want to do, again, look at the description of classification booklet. We have a link in the presentation. And it will let you know what you can do with the specialty class, and also if you would require a different classification, a C license perhaps.
And one way we can maybe talk for a moment just to kind of expand that on is, we did talk about it in the presentation, is if you do have a B license, let's say that you've got a B license only, somebody calls you up and say, in this case, that using this example, let's say that they want you to put in an irrigation system. Legally, a B contractor cannot just install an irrigation system. You have to have at least 2 unrelated trades in addition to framing. So general contractors are, to be doing these big jobs. Now, in this case, if they wanted to contract you to build hoop houses and livestock shelters and the irrigation system, if it's part of that bigger project, then as a B, that would be appropriate. You're supposed to be doing these bigger jobs. So I would suggest in this case, if you may take on jobs that maybe just require you to do the irrigation systems, I would encourage you to maybe look at getting that general contract to be able to handle the big jobs, but you also might want to consider getting maybe a landscape classification, something so you can just do these pieces if those jobs come around to you. A little more work up front to get yourself set up, but once you are set up, then you're golden. You're good to go, and you can take these all different kinds of jobs on. So hopefully that helps you if you're looking for well beyond, and just understand what the difference between a B and a C and how you can take on jobs. Okay, next question.
Another option. I'm sorry, Rick, can I just add something really quick?
Absolutely.
Another option, if you're a B contractor and you want to take on that irrigation, it's just one trade, so you can't do it yourself. You can absolutely hire a subcontractor. You would be in charge of the project. If there was a problem with the project, we would hold you responsible. But you could sub it to a properly licensed subcontractor who has a correct license, who has an active license. You could take on the project and subcontract it out.
No, thank you for stepping in. That's a great point. And also, and there's a lot of contractors out there who are B contractors that don't do any of the work themselves. They sub out everything. So that's another possibility that you can do. Okay, Anna, next one I'm going to throw at you. Please explain the difference between an RME, which is a responsible managing employee, and an RMO, which is a responsible managing officer.
Sure. So the responsible managing officer has ownership in the company. But let's say you want your qualifier. The RMO is the qualifier. We use those interchangeably. So, but let's say that your qualifier is not going to be part ownership, have any ownership in your company. They're going to be an employee. So that's where you would then have them be the RME. They're an employee. We would consider them an employee, but they can still qualify your license. They would still have to prove their experience, and then they would take the examination. So they're the qualifier, but they're an employee instead of being somebody who's actually an officer of the license.
Okay, next, what qualifies as part-time work versus full-time work? What if I work for multiple companies part-time?
So what you want to keep in mind is that we're looking at a 40-hour work week. If you worked full time for a contractor or somebody who's going to certify you, we're going to go ahead and give you the full credit for that time. If they mark the part-time box, we're only going to give you 50% credit. So then you would then need 8 years of experience within the last 10 years. What we're looking for is 48 full-time months. And so if you did part-time, we would then give you only part-time credit, which you need 8 years.
Yeah, so if you got multiple part-time jobs, we would get our calculator out. We'd do a little addition and add those up and see if it's going to get you the full-time equivalent of full-time credits. Is the application the same for the C36 or is it different? No, one application, the things that are different is if you have an exam waiver or if you are not with an exam waiver, but same application regardless of the kind of contractor's license you're trying to get. Okay, does a master's degree at any time or just a BS? I'm sorry I couldn't be more specific on that. We definitely know the BS. So your master's is going to get you obviously at least the same amount of time as the BS. It may, depending on what the degree is, it may get you more. We'll try to update this in our presentation for next month to include master's degrees. So it's going to get you probably somewhere between 2 and 3 years. What are the requirements for a salesperson? There are no education requirements. There's no experience requirements. You do have to undergo a criminal background check. You're registered, so there's no exams to have to take. I think that's everything. So, okay. Next one, I have more than 4 years of experience in the trade and going for a general contractor's license. All of my work has been small jobs. I have no records of permits. Will the comments from the previous clients suffice?
So in order to start the process, what we need is one person. Oh, it doesn't have to be 1%. We need a certifier, somebody who is willing to let us know that you have journeyman level experience, 4 years within the last 10 years. That's going to begin the process. As we mentioned in our presentation, 3% of all of the applications that we receive go through further background. In that event, we would let you know, lucky you, you've been selected. Your application has been selected. You are going to have to submit supporting documentation to prove that you have 4 years of experience. We provided a list of documents that we will accept from you. It's going to have to be more than just comments from your previous clients. You can take a look at the list and see what we're looking for. W-2s is an option. If you don't have W-2s, there are other options. If you don't have permits, as you mentioned, you don't have copies of permits. Do you have old receipts, invoices, old contracts? What do you have? Remember, the burden of proof falls on you. We need you to prove that you have at least 4 years of experience within the last 10 years.
Okay, next question. Does a business owner or owner-operator need to have a business license with the state? No, the state does not give business license. We do have the professional licenses. You don't need to have your local business license in place before you get your contractor's license. Definitely get it, and also be careful. In some areas, you're required not only to have it in the area where your business is located, but if you do businesses in other cities, sometimes those cities do require you to get business licenses to do work in their cities. So check with the local areas that you plan to do your work. Okay, so then this is another question about do you have to be a citizen? No, you don't have to be a citizen. The ITIN, individual tax ID number, or your social security number is all you need. I'm in the process of starting a large-scale handyman business or building maintenance service with multiple employees. We would be doing work in multiple trades like electrical, plumbing, carpentry. What license should you shoot for? Is the general B okay? There's that old handyman term again. Again, handyman exemption in our minds means things that are under $500. You don't need a license for that. So if you're going to be in this business just doing jobs that are less than $500, eek, but you don't have to have a license. But it's what can you do for $500 anymore? That is a tough one. So yes, chances are your B would be the appropriate one because you can also subcontract. But again, remember the minimum of 2 trades plus framing. That's what the law says. I'll tell you too that the Governor Newsom just signed a bill this week that's going to allow us to create. We've been working towards this for many years now to create a sub license, which is going to be very similar to a general contractor's license, but without the framing requirements. So we think that's gonna really help a lot of you applicants a lot. Unfortunately, it's probably going to be a year or two before we're able to get this in place, but it's going to take away some of those framing requirements, which I know in some cases can make it difficult to qualify. So keep an eye out for that. So in this case, B is probably going to be your most appropriate. Again, if you find that a lot of you want to become the ceiling fan installer or the electrical outlet installer, if you want to make that as part of your business plan, instead of the B, you may want to think about, or maybe get the B, then add on a C10 electrical so you can just take on those jobs. Okay, we've got about 20 minutes left, so I'm going to try to pick up the speed a little bit here. If I work for a licensed company under an existing qualifier, do I use to apply to become an additional qualifier? Well, you only need one qualifier for a license, for a different classification. So there's no reason to have a second qualifier for that same license unless you're adding a different classification. If that's the case, if they're already a B and you're adding a C10, or like we were talking about electrical, yeah, then you can become an additional qualifier for the same company. What are the conditions under which the exam waiver would apply? That's if you got the experience. If you've already got the license, it's usually the biggest one is if you've got a license already and you're just going to go move on to a different thing, you can usually get an exam waiver. Anything I missed there?
It says what form should you use to apply. So if you are trying to be a qualifier for a different classification, it would be the additional classification form. It's on our website. You would add the classification and you would be the qualifier for just that one classification.
Okay, next one is, what if a company closed? Will a contact from the company suffice? You need to have, you can't just say that I worked here and here's a contact without having the information there. Imagine you use that on your resume and you don't tell them what you did. No, you need to have somebody that's going to certify that work. in order to be able to get the credits. Not that we would doubt you, but unfortunately too many people do take advantage of that, so that's a requirement. Okay, I'm interested in applying, but also want to go to a school to be prepared for your exam. What do you recommend that you apply first? One accepted, enroll in a contracting school. Timing wise, that's entirely up to you. You certainly can, and then just push your exam date out. You can certainly do that. Again, schools aren't required. If you think it's going to help you, you want to make that investment, then by all means, and take advantage. There's plenty of schools out there. Do your research, find the one that's going to work the best for you. You don't have to. Don't think it really matters whether you apply first or go through the school first. Next question. I've been landscaping for 20 years and was a foreman manager, so I would just need to fill out section 1 and the employer fill out section 2.
So you would fill out section 1, and then it doesn't have to be necessarily your employer. If your employer is willing to do it, absolutely, they would fill out section 2. They would list from what year, from what day, year you worked for them. When did you acquire this experience? They'll give us a detailed list of what are the duties that you performed under them. That's what we're looking for.
Okay, next. I've worked in a family landscaping business for over 15 years, but was not paid. Oh, what a lousy family that is. For your work. But they were not paid. Pay stubs, tax documentation. Will the certifier statement suffice, or is there no paper documentation needed?
We may require paper documentation, so you're going to want to take a look at our acceptable supporting documentation for work experience form that we covered today. Look for additional documentation. If you don't have tax documents, that's not the only document that we accept. So there are other documents that we are willing to accept. There's a link in this presentation here, so make sure you take a look before applying.
Next one, would low voltage fall under the C10? Yeah, you can do it under C10. There's a completely separate classification. C7 is low voltage. So if you want to just do low voltage work, you could go for that one. But if you have a C10 license, you can do both low and high voltage. Okay. Next question is, I have no connections in the construction field. What's a good source to find reputable tech schools to establish training and experience? I would suggest, though we can't make any recommendations, certainly the web, you can do plenty of searches. I would also check in your area, maybe check for a local builders exchange. Those usually tend to be really good sources. It's something that when you get your license, you may want to even think about joining one, investing. There's lots of different trade groups that are out there. Those are great connections. They can get you in touch with different reputable things. Another great resource are the different trades, the building trades, the unions. They have apprenticeship program, lots of different sources out there. But I'd say first place I'd start with either the local builders exchanges or start with one of the different trades. If you're into home remodeling, there's trade organizations just about every part of the construction industry that can turn you on to that stuff. Okay, please advise how or if a sole proprietor B license can be inherited from a family member. Oh,
I think we covered that one.
We dealt with this question before. Okay, now, give me a second. We're starting to see something that we've gotten before. I attended and completed trade school, but it's since closed. How do I prove this education? Well, hopefully you got some kind of certificate or something of completion, because we would need to see that. So hopefully they gave you something upon your. Okay, best way to show experience for yourself if you're self-employed. We have talked about that. There's a number of different things. In some cases, it can go all the way down to receipts for materials, building permits, different ways to be able to prove that you've done work. Does a business or owner-operator need to have a business license for the state? Did that one before. Out-of-state work does qualify. I have 2 trades. How can I have 2 different names? And if I need to do it, corporation, can I use the same workers' comp? Okay, this goes, if I understand this right, is you want to have a license, but you want to have 2 different classifications under your license. We talked about that. Yeah, you do them separately. Get your first license first, get your qualifier for that. If it's not you, if you have a different qualifier, get that thing in place. It's under the corporation. Get your workers' comp if you have employees. Then you want to add your second one. You can use the same workers' comp as long as it's covering all of your employees. The same workers' comp, it's all under one company. You don't need to make it different companies, all under one license, multiple classifications, not a problem. Okay, I heard that CSLB most of the time does not approve B license. The certifier does not have a B license. Is that correct? No, they don't have to have a license to be. I don't know who you're talking to, but it's definitely not Anna. And anybody questions you, tell them Anna and Rick told you that they don't have to be licensed to be a certifier.
The form says they don't have to be licensed.
Like I said, our necks are really short. We'll stick them out, but we're not going to stick them out too far. But we feel pretty confident. Okay, what type of insurance do I need to have a C-27? For the most part, unless you're an LLC, the only required insurance that you need to have is workers' comp. So if you got employees, they need to be covered in workers' comp. It's one of the biggest issues, and as you get into the industry, you'll find out not only are you competing against unlicensed contractors who never carry workers' comp, but you're also going to be competing against other licensed contractors who quite frankly cheat and either don't have workers' comp on their employees or they underinsure. They tell the insurance company that they've got 4 office workers when they actually have 10 people out there climbing trees or working on roofs, and they cheat the system and commit insurance fraud, and you've got to compete against that. It's something we look for and we're very aggressive in going after. But the law only requires you to have workers' comp insurance. Now, other insurances that you may want to consider, and probably in many cases will be good, are things like general liability insurance, which covers damages done to a property, things like that. There's plenty of insurance brokers that deal with the construction industry specifically. If you are an LLC, though, there are requirements for some general liability, and we talk about that on our website.
And just can I cover really quickly the bond?
Sure.
You will be required to have a bond. A bond works just like auto insurance. You pay a bond company, a certain amount, you pay a premium, and they offer you $15,000 worth of coverage. It really is a protection for you. If consumer has a complaint, we always refer them to the bond. File a complaint with the bond. That way they don't sue you directly. They can get the money from the bond, and then later on you pay the bond back. So you will be required to carry a $15,000 bond as well.
Okay, next question, BA in psychology. Yeah, we talked about another thing. You're going to get probably, I never think it was a couple of years for that. Look at the chart in the presentation. Don't hold me to it. Ann and I have been talking for almost 2 hours now, so our questions aren't quite as accurate as we get towards the end. But look at the chart we have. We go through that, but a couple of years you're going to get probably for that. When applying for a D52, there's our test. This is the first time a D52. That is a window covering. Okay, D52. How would you give supporting work currently self-employed using an installer? Well, we've kind of talked about it. It's no different in the D52 as other class.
You would say that certification of work experience, telling us what your experience is, make sure that they're detailed. You're going to want to read the description of what can be done with a D52. If those are things that you have performed, you want to make sure that your certifier includes that in their work, the certification of work experience, section 2.
Okay, another one about duct cleaning. They have a question on what the license covers. The best thing Anna's given the advice a few times now is just go take a look at the definition of it. It'll tell you what's allowed to be done. Okay, does the surety bond coverage period match exactly the license duration period? I.e., is it okay to provide 2 or 3 years duration security bond for a 4-year duration license and provide renewed bond later 2 to 3 years? Okay, I'll kind of run through these one at a time. The license is good for 2 years. It goes through the same month of the date it was issued. So in this month, if you got one this month in October, it's good till the end of October 2022. I believe you should be able, with your bond company, I think they just give out 1-year bonds. I'm not sure that they actually go longer than 1 year. So that would tie, you should be able, correct me if I'm wrong, Anna, that you should be able to tie that to your license expiration. And your workers' comp, I think you can tie that as well. I don't believe they give policies that are more than 1 year. No. So I think that's the case. So I don't think you're going to have these situations where you can do it for longer than that. I'm not sure that they're going to provide those for longer than that. Okay, how do we add a qualifier to an existing license? On our website, we have a form, very simple to do. You can change your qualifier. You can take one person off the license, add the other person on license. If somebody leaves the license, there is a time period you have to get them replaced. If not, your license is going to get suspended. So it's all on the website. Just look, replace qualifiers. You'll find the information. Okay. Your contractor's license expired in June of 2019. You also served in the military and was honorably discharged in 85. Advise me of the least painstaking procedure for getting your contractor's license. Well, it sounds like you were licensed. It doesn't say in what classification. Let's assume that you had a B and it expired in June of 2019, so just over a year ago. The time since your license expired changes the requirements. This has only been expired for a year, so it's relatively easy. And maybe Anna, you can just note that that's going to be fairly easy to get your license because it's been such a short time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you wouldn't have to take examinations again or anything. Just let us know that you're trying to reactivate your license, that it's been expired since June of 2019.
Yeah, well, in this case, again, you can reactivate it, but you're going to have to pay a delinquent fee because you get a certain amount of time to, you obviously you can only renew a license up until the date it expires. After that, it's delinquent. But certainly within this time period, just over a year, it's still considered a delinquent license. You can just pay the renewal fees and the delinquent fee, and you're good to go back to work. Can I hold a general B contractor license in California? Well, same question. We dealt with that one already. Okay, I'm a licensed contractor in New York, moving back to California after 6 years. Can I use my experience in a coworker as a qualifier based out of New York? You're shaking your head no?
No, it says, can I use my experience and then my coworker as a qualifier? The qualifier is the person with the experience. So if you have the experience, you would have to be the qualifier. You would have to take the examination. If your coworker, maybe, and we see this all the time, a husband and wife, sometimes the wife wants to take the exam, but the husband's the one with the experience. Unfortunately, the qualifier is a person with the experience, and that's the person who takes the exam. So you have to let us know.
Thank you. I didn't read that as close as I should have. So thank you for fixing that. Can qualifiers be outside the state of California, or do qualifiers have to be in California?
Qualifiers can be out of California. That's not a problem. They have to come to California to take the examination, but they can reside.
Yeah, it might create a challenge on being able to run and control, to have the control of the company, though. So be aware of that. And also, we have a lot of companies that are out of state but do work in California. That's very common. Okay, good. We're down. Oh my God, down to the last 5 minutes. Okay, I'll try to give you a second here to. Okay, we're asking again. They're asking again. They missed about the DACA question. To get a license, you have to have one of two things: a social security number or an individual taxpayer ID number. If you've got one of those, you can apply to get your contractor's license. You don't need to be a legal resident of the United States to get your contractor's license, but you need to have either a social security number or an individual taxpayer ID number. Everything I'm seeing here is looking like they're repeating the same questions over and over here. Okay, regarding insurance, one of the slides showed $100,000 insurance for LLC. Does that apply to proprietorships? No. As we mentioned just a couple of minutes ago, LLCs are the only ones where there's a requirement for general liability insurance policy. The other ones do not require it. In some cases, it's a smart thing to have, but it's not required. Can I put in my qualification at a company I worked for if the guy retired a year ago? As long as he's going to certify that and has that knowledge, then yeah, you can use that. I'm pursuing to get my D34 license. Am I required to take both tests? No. If it's a D license, which technically it's called a C61/D whatever, no, you're only required to take the business and law exam. There's no trade exams for the Ds. Real estate agents, can they verify your work experience? I don't know if you did work on houses, if they referred you, Anna.
Yes, as long as sometimes real estate agents will hire you to make repairs on homes, as long as they are willing to fill out the certification of work experience and can provide proof that you have 4 years of journeyman level experience, meaning that you could complete that job from beginning to end, whatever classification it is that you're applying for, that you have journeyman level experience and they're willing to serve as your certifier, then yes, we will consider that experience.
Okay, somebody who does have a Social Security, but they don't want to use it. They want to use an ITIN. They want to know how to get that. I believe it's, is it the IRS that does ITINs?
You can go to
Yeah,
the IRS
So,
website.
yeah, so that you can find out the information on IRS websites. Okay, so we'll wrap up. I'll do just a couple more here. How long does it take CSLB to respond when someone submits an application? We take a look at, we talked about it in the presentation, but take a look at an update that we do every week and post on the website. It shows you the dates of the materials that we're currently working on. Depending on if everything is good to go, it's probably going to take a matter it's going to take a few weeks. I mean, we get 1,000 applications a month, and with COVID and everything going on, we have a lot of people that are teleworking. We have people who, because of things that we're all going through, whether it's kids in school and things like that, it's made life really wacky. They're working as fast as they can. Take a look at that, the updates that we provide there to give you an idea of what we're processing right now, to give you an idea. But it's gonna take a few weeks. We find that then it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks to get scheduled for your exam. One thing I should mention is, and remember this, if you get an exam date and you want to try to get your exam done sooner than what your exam date is, as I mentioned in the presentation, on any given day, between 10 and 20% of the people who are scheduled for that day don't show up. So we've got open seats. So you're going to have to take a chance. But if you do want to take your exam earlier than your test date, and you're willing to take the risk of driving to a test center and seeing if there's any open seats, there's a pretty good chance you're going to be able to actually get a seat. So remember that as you move forward. If your exam date's not soon enough, you want to get to work faster, that's a really good way to move things forward and get things done a little bit faster. Okay, we are now at 12 o'clock, so we are going to wrap up. Fortunately, we didn't have too many left, and we were seeing a lot of, so hopefully we've addressed everything that you were looking for. So, thank you everybody for all of your questions and for participating. If you have any other questions about the application, we would encourage you to drop an email to our licensing division. The email address is licensing@cslb.ca.gov. That is licensing@cslb.ca.gov. And if at some point you need to reschedule your exam, you can do that by dropping an email to exams@cslb.ca.gov.
And just a reminder, we're still trying to identify available resources specifically targeting women who are considering a career in construction. So let us know if you know of any out there, especially if there's a void that CSLB might be willing to might be able to fill. Let us know. Drop us an email at social@cslb.ca.gov as well.
And here's a slide to show you, if you download the presentation, these are the resources that we've been able to identify. So if you haven't already, be sure to download the presentation to get them. You can download the presentation for at least the next couple hours. We'll keep the green banner up on the top of our homepage, cslb.ca.gov. Also in the Q&As, I did send out the link in there as well. So, try to grab that, make sure you get it. If you're watching the archive video of the workshop on our YouTube page, we'll put a link to the presentation down below that as well. Well, that does conclude today's workshop. An archived version will be placed on our CSLB YouTube page, and we welcome your comments or ideas and topics for future webcasts. So please be sure to drop us an email. Our address for that is social@cslb.ca.gov. Special thanks today to our licensing division and other staff who've helped us put together the workshop. The Get Licensed to Build workshop is a copyrighted production of the California Contractor State License Board. On behalf of Anna and everybody here at CSLB watching, have a great weekend.